I stood at the edge of the shimmering lake, the sun casting a kaleidoscope of colors across its surface. To anyone else, it would seem like a picturesque paradise, but for the inhabitants of Zarathia, the sight was terrifying. The vibrant blue of the water was a hue that danced between inviting and threatening. They referred to it as the acid sea, and to them, it was a lethal peril. I took a deep breath, inhaling the sharp scent of sulfur and minerals that wafted through the air. This was my first expedition to Zarathia, and as a human, I was ready to embrace everything this alien world had to offer. The locals, the Zarathians, had gathered at a distance, their large, multifaceted eyes wide with a mix of awe and horror. Their vibrant scales shimmered in the light, shifting between greens and purples, reflecting their unease. They watched as I stripped down to my swim trunks, the soft fabric brushing against my skin, a reminder that I was completely at ease while they stood poised for a possible disaster. "Are you sure about this?" my teammate, Jake, called out from behind me, adjusting his own gear. "We still don't know how the Zarathians will react." I turned to him, a grin stretching across my face. "Come on, Jake. We've handled worse than this. Besides, they'll never understand us unless we show them how we live." With that, I took a few steps back, feeling the heat of the sun on my back and the excitement coursing through me. I sprinted forward and dove into the lake, my body slicing through the surface, the coolness enveloping me in a refreshing embrace. For me, this was a familiar joy, a baptism of life, a dance of freedom. As I resurfaced, laughter erupted from the shore, the sound almost foreign in this alien landscape. I glanced back to see the Zarathians whispering among themselves, their voices a mix of concern and disbelief. It was a strange sensation, being the center of attention, especially when I knew they thought I was risking my life. "Is it safe?" one of the Zarathians, an elder with faded scales, asked in his guttural language, his body rigid with apprehension. His words were translated into our universal translator, a device we never left behind. I laughed, treading water effortlessly. "Safe. This is just water, my friend. You've got nothing to worry about." He squinted at me, his eyes narrowing as he tried to understand. Water was not just a simple substance to the Zarathians. It was a corrosive agent, a chemical weapon. Their societies had evolved in a world where every drop of water was considered lethal. To them, I was a reckless fool, dancing on the precipice of doom. Yet, to me, this was a party. Another splash, and I turned to see Jake reluctantly following suit, his body hitting the water with a less graceful thud. "What if we drown?" he called out, his voice laced with humor despite the trepidation in his eyes. "Then we'll drown together," I replied, laughter bubbling up as I splashed him. The Zarathians recoiled, their expressions shifting between shock and curiosity. The elder continued to stare, his mind racing as he tried to reconcile the behavior of these Deathworlders with his cultural understanding. The sight of us humans enjoying what they viewed as deadly had to be disorienting. As we swam, more and more Zarathians gathered, their fascination overtaking their fear. They observed our every movement, their bodies tense yet captivated. I saw young Zarathians tentatively dip their fingers into the water, only to flinch back, as if stung by an invisible force. It was a delicate dance, their curiosity battling their instincts. After an hour of splashing and laughter, I climbed out, the sun glistening on my skin like droplets of liquid gold. I flopped onto the sandy shore, panting but exhilarated. Jake followed, dragging himself out with a groan. "Can you believe it?" I shouted, looking at our audience. "We're swimming in their acid sea, and they're still here." But the laughter faded as I noticed the elder's face had turned pale, his scales dimming in hue. Something was wrong. His eyes darted between the lake and the crowd of Zarathians, and I could feel the tension in the air thicken like a heavy fog. I exchanged worried glances with Jake. Suddenly, a loud roar erupted from the depths of the lake, shaking the very ground beneath us. The water churned violently, sending up sprays of acid that glistened in the sunlight. The Zarathians gasped, their fear erupting into chaos. They scrambled back, panic lighting their features as they retreated into the forest that framed the lake. "What the hell was that?" Jake shouted. his voice rising above the clamor. I squinted into the lake as something enormous broke the surface, a massive creature, covered in scales and spines, emerging from the depths with a fierce growl. Its eyes glinted with intelligence, its body streamlined and powerful. It was a predator, and it was staring right at us. I felt my heart race, but fear quickly turned into adrenaline. This was a Deathworlders paradise. If it was an apex predator, then we had an opportunity to show these aliens just how resilient humanity could be. I turned to Jake, my expression one of determination. We need to show them we can handle this. Are you insane? He replied, his voice laced with disbelief. That thing could tear us apart. And that's why we have to make it back to the water, I shouted, an idea sparking in my mind. If we could demonstrate our prowess in front of the Zarathians, we might just change their perception of us forever. With a quick nod, we both plunged back into the acid sea, feeling the heat and corrosiveness envelop us. As the monstrous creature surged forward, I could feel the eyes of the Zarathians on us, watching, waiting. We had come to Zarathia to study their unique environment and to understand their culture. But now it seemed we were about to learn something far more valuable about ourselves and about the nature of the universe. As the creature dove toward us, I grinned at Jake. Let's give them a show. The creature surged through the water, a massive silhouette cutting toward us with terrifying speed. Its jaws opened, revealing rows of jagged teeth that gleamed like polished ivory in the sunlight. My heart pounded in my chest as I kicked hard, propelling myself away from its snapping maw. Are you crazy? Jake shouted, barely keeping pace. We need to get out of here. Trust me, I called back, adrenaline surging through my veins. This is our chance to show them we're not afraid. We swam deeper into the lake, feeling the temperature drop as the beast closed in. My mind raced with thoughts of how we could turn this situation to our advantage. I recalled the old Earth adage, if you can't fight them, outsmart them. With that in mind, I spun around, taking stock of the creature that now loomed behind us. Its scales were thick and armored, glistening as they caught the light. There were subtle shifts in its body language that suggested it was just as curious as it was predatory. While it might see us as prey, we were far from helpless. I glanced back at Jake, who was still trying to keep his head above water. We need to lure it away from the shore, I shouted. If we can get it far enough from the lake, we can show the Zarathians we're in control. Jake hesitated, but the desperation in my voice must have ignited a spark of instinct within him. All right, lead the way, he yelled. With a deep breath, I dove beneath the surface, the world above shifting to shades of blue and green as I maneuvered through the depths. The creature followed, a dark shadow slicing through the water with a force that sent ripples cascading in all directions. I kicked hard, angling myself toward the deeper part of the lake, where I hoped the creature's bulk would be less agile. I glanced back to see it still on our tail, its massive body propelling forward with relentless determination. Just as I thought we might have a chance, the creature lunged, snapping its jaws in an attempt to catch me. I barely managed to veer to the side, feeling the rush of water in its wake. The sound of its roar reverberated in my bones as I swam with all my might, urging Jake to keep up. Dive deeper, I called out, my voice echoing in the water. We can confuse it in the darkness. We plunged deeper, the sunlight fading into shadow. The temperature dropped further, and the water became murky as we swam through a haze of mineral-laden silt. I could hear the creature thrashing behind us, its movements growing more frantic. Then, I spotted it, a series of submerged rocks protruding from the lake floor, sharp and jagged. This could be our advantage. I gestured to Jake, and we made our way toward the rocky outcrop, using it as cover. As we hid behind the stones, I held my breath, listening intently. The beast swam into view, its massive head turning side to side, searching for us. I felt a rush of triumph as I realized it had lost sight of its prey. The tension in the water was palpable, and for a moment, I believed we might escape. But then, it caught our scent. With a powerful thrust of its tail, the creature lunged forward, bursting through the surface of the lake in a spray of acidic water. Its roar echoed through the air, shaking the trees along the shore. The Zarathians, who had retreated to a safe distance, gasped and murmured among themselves. I could see their eyes wide with fear, and I knew I had to act fast. "Now," I yelled to Jake, "we can't let it catch us again." We dashed around the rocky outcrop, using the underwater terrain to our advantage. The creature's bulk was a hindrance in the shallows, but it was still relentless. As we emerged on the other side, I turned and swam at an angle toward the shore, hoping to lure it back to where the Zarathians could see us. "Get ready," I shouted, glancing back to see it gaining on us, its massive form breaking through the surface in a flurry of bubbles. "Do you think they'll understand?" Jake asked, panting as he swam beside me. "They'll have to," I replied. "They need to see that we can handle ourselves. If we survive this, it'll change everything." Just as the creature surged forward, I took a deep breath and dove beneath the surface again, dragging Jake with me. The water felt different now, filled with tension and a sense of impending danger. We could hear the creature thrashing above us, but down here, we were momentarily safe. I had a plan, though it was a gamble. I swam toward the edge of the lake, where the water began to shallow, a point where I hoped the beast would be forced to slow down. As we approached the shore, I could see the Zarathians gathered in a cluster, their eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding in the lake. With one final push, I broke the surface and gasped for air, signaling for Jake to follow. Together, we swam to the shallows, watching as the creature hesitated at the deeper water's edge. It seemed confused, and in that moment, I knew we could capitalize on its uncertainty. "Time to show them we're not afraid," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I reached for a rock, hefting it in my hand. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. Jake glanced at me, his expression a mix of fear and determination. We were going to face this beast together. As the creature roared again, its eyes locking onto us, we prepared for what was next. The Zarathians watched, their fear giving way to a sense of awe, and I could feel the weight of their gazes. "Let's give them a show," I said, raising the rock high above my head, ready to hurl it at the approaching menace. Just as I was about to release it, the ground shook beneath us. A rumble echoed through the air, and for a moment I thought the world was ending. But then I saw the Zarathians' faces, their eyes wide, pointing toward the horizon. A massive figure broke through the treetops, soaring toward us. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, an enormous flying creature, its wingspan casting a shadow over the lake. It dove toward the water, and in that instant, I realized we were no longer alone in our fight. The colossal beast soared overhead, its wings slicing through the air with powerful beats that sent gusts of wind rushing across the surface of the lake. I could hardly comprehend what I was seeing. The flying creature was breathtaking, feathered like a bird, but scaled like a reptile, with colors that shimmered and shifted in the sunlight. "Is that a—" Jake started, but I couldn't wait for him to finish. "Get ready," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins as I readied myself for whatever was about to happen. The creature arced downward, its talons extended as it dove toward the lake. I had no idea whether it would help us or see us as threats, but it was too late to consider the consequences. With a mighty splash, it hit the water, sending a massive wave cascading toward us. The acidic liquid sprayed everywhere, forcing us to shield our eyes as we ducked beneath the surface once more. For a moment, everything was chaos. Bubbles erupted, and the surface of the lake churned violently. As I resurfaced, I squinted to find Jake. "Are you all right?" I called out. "Just a bit shaken," he replied, wiping the water from his face. "What now?" I turned my gaze back to the creature, watching as it thrashed about in the shallows, splashing water everywhere. The Zarathians had retreated further back, their wide eyes reflecting the horror and fascination they felt witnessing this struggle. I could see their mouths moving, probably discussing what they were seeing, but I had no time to focus on their reactions. In a surprising twist, the creature began to move toward the shoreline, and I realized it was not attacking us, but trying to capture something from the depths. A large shadow darted beneath the water, and I knew it must be the beast that had chased us earlier. "It's going after the other creature," I shouted to Jake, excitement bubbling in my chest. We might be able to use this to our advantage. The Zarathians gasped as the flying beast dove beneath the surface, creating a colossal splash that sent waves crashing against the rocks. I could see the panic in their eyes, and I felt a rush of exhilaration. We were not just participants in this dance of chaos, we were shaping it. I gestured for Jake to follow me, and we began to swim toward the shoreline, keeping an eye on the flying creature. It emerged again, this time holding the creature that had chased us in its talons. The poor beast was writhing, attempting to escape, but the aerial predator was far too powerful. "Look at that," I exclaimed, pointing at the spectacle before us. "If we can get the Zarathians to see this, it will change everything. They'll understand we can handle ourselves." Jake nodded, the fear in his eyes giving way to determination. We emerged onto the shore, soaked but alive, and took a moment to gather our thoughts. The massive creature shook the water from its feathers, revealing a vibrant blue and green that blended with the foliage around us. Then, the unexpected happened. The Zarathians stepped forward, their eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. One of them, a tall figure with iridescent skin and intricate patterns, approached cautiously. I could see a mix of reverence and apprehension in his expression. "What have you done?" he asked, his voice reverberating with a mix of awe and disbelief. "We survived," I replied simply, taking a step forward. "And now, you see the strength of humanity." The Zarathians exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to something more profound. I realized in that moment that we were not just fighting for survival. We were on the brink of a new understanding. As the flying beast landed nearby, it dropped the writhing creature at our feet, sending a ripple of unease through the crowd of Zarathians. They watched intently as I stepped forward, examining the fallen beast. It was beautiful in its own way, but it also represented the very danger we had faced. "Let this be a lesson," I declared, my voice ringing clear and strong. "We are not to be trifled with. We are Deathworlders, and we have faced the worst that this planet has to offer." The lead Zarathian regarded me with newfound respect, and I could see that I was beginning to break through their preconceived notions. "You fight well," he said, nodding slowly, "but we must still be cautious. Your ways are different from ours." "That's exactly why we need to work together," I replied, the realization dawning on me. "Together, we can learn from each other. You teach us about your world, and we teach you about ours." The crowd buzzed with chatter, and the Zarathians shifted among themselves, weighing my words. In that moment of uncertainty, I felt a surge of hope. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about forging a bond that transcended our differences. Suddenly, there was a commotion behind me. I turned to see the flying creature shifting uneasily, its large eyes fixated on the horizon. Following its gaze, I spotted another figure, a massive armored being emerging from the tree line. Its presence was commanding, and it exuded an aura of authority. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, with its gleaming metal exoskeleton and imposing stature. The moment it stepped into the clearing, all eyes turned to it, and the chatter fell silent. "Who dares to disturb the balance of our realm?" The armored figure boomed, its voice deep and resonant. I could sense the tension rising among the Zarathians, their expressions shifting from curiosity to fear. The lead Zarathian stepped forward, his body tense. "We do not mean to cause trouble, Othrin," he said, addressing the newcomer. "We have merely witnessed a demonstration of strength." Othrin regarded me with a piercing gaze, assessing my every move. "Strength alone does not guarantee survival. What do you humans truly seek?" I took a deep breath, realizing the importance of my next words. "We seek understanding," I said firmly. "We want to learn from you, just as we hope you will learn from us. We are not enemies. We are potential allies." A murmur ran through the crowd, and I could see Othrin weighing my proposal. It was a gamble, one that could lead to peace or war. "What do you offer in return for our trust?" Othrin asked, his voice calm but authoritative. I glanced back at Jake, then back at the Zarathians. "We can share our knowledge of survival, our tactics, and even our technology. We can protect each other from the dangers of this world." Othrin's eyes narrowed, and he seemed to consider my words carefully. You believe that strength comes from knowledge? Perhaps you are more than just Deathworlders. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. Othrin stepped closer, his gaze fixed on me. Very well, human. Show me what you are capable of. Prove that your kind can coexist with the Zorathians and earn our respect. With that, I knew the path ahead was filled with challenges, but I also sensed the potential for something incredible. Together, we could forge a future that bridged our worlds, transforming fear into understanding. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Othrin's challenge hung in the air. The Zorathians, still on edge, watched closely as I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I needed to devise a plan that would prove our worth, while also showcasing the unique strengths of humanity. Let's start with the basics, I proposed, turning to Jake. We need to demonstrate our survival skills. We'll show them how we thrive in extreme conditions. Jake nodded, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. And what if they don't respond well? We could be walking into a trap. True, I replied, scanning the crowd of Zorathians and the looming presence of Othrin. But if we show them our adaptability and resourcefulness, it could lead to a stronger alliance. Besides, we have an ace up our sleeve, our experience with hostile environments. Othrin crossed his arms, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming in the sunlight. Very well. Show us what you can do, Deathworlders, but know that failure will have consequences. The Zorathians whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between me, Jake, and Othrin. I could sense their skepticism. They had likely never encountered anything like us before. All right, I said, taking a deep breath. First, we'll find a local predator, something that can give us a run for our money. We'll demonstrate our tactics to take it down. I turned back toward the lake, scanning the edge for signs of movement. The ecosystem here was rich and teeming with life. As a Deathworlder, I had learned to thrive in such environments, and I was determined to show the Zorathians just how resourceful humanity could be. Let's see what we can find, Jake agreed, his voice filled with newfound resolve. Together, we began our search along the water's edge. Minutes later, we spotted movement beneath the surface, a dark silhouette gliding through the water. I raised my hand to signal Jake to be quiet as I crouched low, peering closer. There, I whispered, pointing. It's a Murok. They're fast and can be quite dangerous, especially when cornered. The creature emerged for a brief moment, revealing its sleek, elongated body and razor-sharp teeth. Its scales glistened like polished metal in the sunlight. Can we really take that down? Jake asked, all mixing with concern. If we work together, absolutely, I assured him. We just need to keep our wits about us. I pulled out a small knife from my gear, its blade designed for precision. It wasn't a traditional weapon, but I'd learned to use it in creative ways, and this situation called for a blend of strategy and adaptability. We need to drive it toward the shore, I instructed Jake. You create a distraction while I flank it from the other side. Ready? He nodded, determination etched on his face. Let's do this. Jake waded into the water, creating splashes to lure the Murok's attention away from me. As I crept silently through the underbrush, I kept my eyes fixed on the creature, gauging its movements. The Murok darted closer to Jake, its predatory instincts kicking in as it lunged toward him. Just as planned, I seized the opportunity and lunged forward from my hiding spot, darting around the creature's side. Now, I yelled, and together, we closed in on the Murok from both sides. With a swift motion, I plunged my knife into the creature's side. It let out a chilling screech, thrashing violently in the water. Jake and I struggled to keep hold of the slippery beast as it fought back with fierce determination. Keep it steady, Jake shouted, his grip tightening around the Murok's neck. The struggle was intense, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. We were two humans against a creature that thrived in an environment we were just beginning to understand. With a final heave, we managed to bring the Murok to the shallows, where its movements slowed. The acidic water sizzled around us, but we pressed on, fighting to assert our dominance. "Now, finish it," I yelled, pushing against the creature's body. In a final act of desperation, we both thrust our weapons deep into the Mirok. A tense silence fell as the creature succumbed, and we finally pulled back, panting heavily and glancing at one another. We had done it. The tension in the air was palpable as I turned back toward the group of Zarathians. They stared wide-eyed, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. Othrin stood tall, his gaze unyielding as he assessed our feat. "Impressive," he said finally, a hint of admiration creeping into his tone. "You fight with tenacity, but can you do more than just survive? What else lies within you?" "Deathworlders." I could sense the momentum shifting, and it filled me with determination. "We can do much more," I replied confidently. "Let me show you what else humanity is capable of." As we began to discuss our next demonstration, I felt a swell of pride. It wasn't just about proving ourselves anymore. It was about forging a connection with these beings, showing them that we were more than just a race of warriors. "Let's find something even more challenging," I suggested. "A predator that requires more than just brute force to overcome. Something that will truly showcase our ingenuity." "Like what?" Jake asked, his curiosity piqued. "Remember the acidic geysers we saw earlier? They could harbor some dangerous creatures," I mused. "Let's see if we can outsmart whatever lies beneath those bubbling pools." With the Zarathians at our side, we ventured deeper into the wilderness, our spirits high and anticipation buzzing through the air. We were not just forging a path for survival, we were crafting a legacy of collaboration and mutual respect. As we neared the geysers, the ground beneath us rumbled, sending plumes of steam shooting into the air. I could see the Zarathians stepping back, their expressions shifting from curiosity to apprehension. "Stay close," I warned, scanning the area for any signs of movement. "We need to be ready for anything." Just as I finished speaking, a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the geyser. A massive creature emerged, its scaled body glistening like molten rock, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. "This is it," I whispered to Jake, adrenaline surging. "Let's show them what humans can do." The creature that emerged from the geyser was a behemoth, its form larger than any predator I'd encountered before. Its scales shimmered with an iridescent sheen, reflecting the acidic water that bubbled around it. The beast's multiple eyes blinked rapidly, taking in our presence, and its jaws were lined with rows of serrated teeth, designed for rending flesh. "Can we really take that down?" Jake's voice trembled slightly, the enormity of the situation dawning on him. I hesitated only for a moment, my heart racing with the thrill of the challenge. "We can't just rely on brute strength," I said, keeping my voice steady. "This creature thrives in its environment. We need to outthink it." Othrin stepped forward, seemingly undeterred by the sight of the monstrous predator. "What is your plan, Deathworlders? You speak of cunning, yet you seem uncertain." I clenched my fists, drawing confidence from the challenge. "We'll lure it away from the geyser. If we can separate it from its territory, we stand a better chance of overcoming it. I'll need your help to create a diversion." Othrin nodded, his eyes narrowing in thought. "Very well. Zarathians are skilled at utilizing their surroundings. We will assist you." Together, we formulated a plan. Jake and I would provoke the creature, drawing its attention away from the geyser, while the Zarathians used their advanced technology to create a series of loud noises and flashes of light to further distract it. "All right, let's do this," I said, the gravity of the moment settling over us. Jake and I waded toward the geyser's edge, feeling the intense heat radiating from the bubbling acid. "On 3, I whispered. 1, 2, 3. With that, we hurled rocks into the geyser, sending them splashing into the acidic pool below. The creature turned its multiple eyes towards us, its attention piqued by the disturbance. It let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath our feet. "Now," I yelled, and Jake and I sprinted away from the geyser, weaving through the thick foliage as we led the creature deeper into the dense jungle. The Zarathians executed their part of the plan flawlessly, They unleashed a series of explosive sounds and blinding lights that echoed through the trees, confusing and disorienting the creature. "Over here," Jake shouted, pointing toward a clearing that lay ahead. "We can use the open space to maneuver." As we reached the clearing, I skidded to a halt, breathless but exhilarated. The creature followed, thrashing through the underbrush, its roar reverberating through the air. The clearing opened up, revealing a rocky outcrop that jutted out over a pool of bubbling acid. This was our chance. "Get ready," I shouted to Jake. "We need to guide it towards the edge. We'll make it fall into the pool." We started running again, leading the creature closer to the precipice. I could see its powerful limbs gaining ground, its jaws snapping dangerously close. Just as it lunged, I pivoted and dove to the side, allowing it to sail past me. "Now," I yelled, hoping Jake was in position. Jake charged toward the creature's flank, causing it to pivot. With a swift movement, he slammed his shoulder against the beast, diverting its momentum just enough to send it tumbling toward the edge. The creature let out a frustrated growl, its claws scraping against the rocky surface as it struggled to regain its balance. In that split second, I saw our opening. "Push!" I yelled, rushing forward. I threw my weight into the creature's side, and with Jake's help, we managed to shove it over the edge. Time seemed to slow as it plummeted into the pool below, the acid bubbling violently around it. It thrashed in panic, but the acidic water quickly engulfed it, and soon it was gone, leaving only ripples in the surface. We stood at the edge of the clearing, panting heavily, adrenaline coursing through our veins. I glanced back at the Zorathians, who were watching in stunned silence. "Did you see that?" I laughed, exhilarated by our success. "That's how we fight." Othran stepped forward, a look of admiration in his many eyes. "You have proven your worth, Deathworlders. Your cunning and bravery are commendable. But can you do more than just fight?" I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "You have shown us your strength and survival skills, but what lies beneath that? Can you create, innovate, collaborate?" Othran asked, his tone thoughtful. It was a challenge I hadn't anticipated, and for a moment I felt uncertain. "We've faced challenges before," I replied slowly, "but we can adapt and create. Just give us a chance to show you." He nodded, accepting my answer. "Then let us take this further. Show us the depths of your ingenuity. We will journey to the Crafter's Cavern, where the very essence of Zorathian craftsmanship resides. You will need to impress the elders there." The prospect sent a thrill through me. This was more than a test of strength. It was an opportunity to forge a deeper bond with the Zorathians and showcase the innovative spirit of humanity. "Let's do it," I said, determination flaring in my chest. "Lead the way, Othran. We won't let you down." As we set off toward the Crafter's Cavern, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We weren't just fighting to survive anymore. We were ready to prove ourselves as allies, partners, and equals. The path to the Crafter's Cavern wound through dense vegetation, each step taking us deeper into the heart of the Zorathian jungle. The air buzzed with the sounds of unfamiliar wildlife, a chorus of chirps and whistles that filled me with wonder. For the first time since we'd landed on this planet, I felt the thrill of exploration overshadowing the ever-present danger. Othran led the way with an unyielding confidence, his keen eyes scanning our surroundings as if anticipating threats lurking in the shadows. Jake and I flanked him, taking in the vibrant colors of the flora, bright hues of violet and emerald mingling in a breathtaking display. "Is it always like this?" Jake asked, marveling at a cluster of light plants that glowed softly in the twilight. Othran glanced back at us, his many eyes gleaming with a mixture of pride and amusement. "The jungle thrives with life. Every corner holds a secret, every plant a purpose. But be wary, beauty often masks danger." I felt a shiver run down my spine. The earlier encounter with a gargantuan predator still lingered in my thoughts. "What kinds of dangers are we looking at?" "Many creatures rely on stealth, striking when one is least prepared," he replied. "But this journey is as much about discovery as it is about peril. You will learn from the environment, just as you teach your own kind." As we pressed on, Othran began to share stories of the Zarathians' own struggles against the harshness of their world. "We are a resilient species," he said, voice steady with conviction. "Our ancestors learned to adapt, to innovate, and to thrive. It is this spirit I wish to see in you." "Adaptation is in our blood too," I replied, feeling the weight of his expectations. "We've faced extinction before. Each time, we've come back stronger." He nodded, seemingly pleased. "Then you understand. In the Crafter's Cavern, we shall see how well you can harness that spirit." The terrain shifted as we neared our destination. The trees parted to reveal a massive cavern entrance, its mouth gaping like the jaws of a colossal beast. Biolite fungi clung to the walls, light intricate carvings that depicted the history of the Zarathian people. "Welcome to the Crafter's Cavern," Othran announced, stepping into the dim light. "Here, the elders will judge your worthiness." As we ventured further inside, the cavern opened up into a vast hall, its ceiling lost in shadows. Columns of crystalline formations sprouted from the ground, refracting the soft glow of the fungi into a mesmerizing dance of colors. At the far end of the hall, a group of Zarathian elders sat upon elevated platforms, their eyes fixed on us. Each elder bore intricate markings on their skin, symbols of wisdom and rank that marked them as guardians of Zarathian culture. Othran gestured for us to approach. "These are the elders. They will determine if you have the skills to contribute to our society." My heart raced as I stepped forward, feeling the weight of their gaze upon me. I glanced at Jake, who seemed equally anxious. One of the elders, a tall figure with flowing silver scales, spoke first. "Deathworlders, you have proven yourselves in battle, but can you create? Can you inspire?" "We're not just fighters," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "We adapt, innovate, and thrive. We're here to show you that we can contribute in ways beyond combat." "Very well," the elder said, tilting his head as if assessing my sincerity. "Prove it. You will undertake a challenge, crafting an item that embodies the spirit of your people. You will have until the sun reaches its zenith." "Crafting? We can do that," Jake exclaimed, a spark of enthusiasm igniting in his eyes. I shot him a look, urging him to temper his excitement. "We need to think this through. What can we create that truly represents humanity?" The elders watched us intently, waiting for our next move. "We need resources," I said, suddenly realizing the challenge ahead of us. "Othran, can you help us gather what we need?" He nodded, his gaze shifting toward the cavern's exit. "There are materials within the jungle. You must use your ingenuity to gather them and return before time runs out." With a swift motion, I rallied Jake. "Let's get moving. We need to find something that shows the strength and resilience of humanity." We sprinted back into the jungle, adrenaline fueling our urgency. As we dashed through the foliage, I began to consider what we might create. Something that not only showcased our strength, but also our spirit of innovation. "What about a tool that represents survival?" Jake suggested, dodging a low-hanging vine. "Like a multi-tool? It could show how we adapt to our environment." "Good idea," I replied, my mind racing. "But we need something more symbolic, something that tells our story." As we explored, we stumbled upon a glade filled with peculiar plants. Some of them glimmered with an oily sheen, while others bore vibrant flowers. I crouched to examine one particularly unusual specimen. Its leaves were thick and waxy, reminiscent of some plants on Earth that could withstand extreme conditions. "This could work," I said, plucking a few leaves. "If we weave these together, they might form a protective sheath for our tool." "Yeah, and we can use that rock formation over there as a base," Jake pointed out, excitement bubbling in his voice. We began to gather materials, working quickly but thoughtfully. As we collected stones, vines, and more of the unique plant life, I felt a sense of purpose build within me. We weren't just crafting an item, we were forging a connection, a representation of what humanity stood for. With our materials in hand, we returned to the cavern, our minds buzzing with ideas. As we set to work, the pressure of the elders' scrutiny was palpable. "Let's start with a base," I instructed, carefully selecting a sturdy stone. We needed a solid foundation to support whatever we created. The hours flew by as we sculpted and crafted, drawing upon our strengths and ingenuity. Each moment was a testament to humanity's resilience and adaptability, a chance to showcase our spirit through creativity. Finally, as the sun reached its zenith, we stepped back to admire our work. We had crafted a multi-tool, but not just any tool. It was a beautifully ornate creation, its surface intricately carved with symbols that told the story of humanity's struggle and triumph over adversity. I glanced at Jake, his face lighting up with excitement. "Do you think they'll like it?" "Only one way to find out," I replied, my heart racing as we approached the elders once more. As we presented our creation, the room fell silent. The elders examined our work with scrutiny, their expressions inscrutable. After what felt like an eternity, the silver-scaled elder nodded slowly. "You have embodied the spirit of your kind. You adapt, innovate, and collaborate. This tool is a symbol of your resilience. You are worthy." A rush of relief and pride surged through me. We had done it. We had proven ourselves. Othran stepped forward, his expression one of admiration. "You have shown us that you are more than just fighters. You are capable of creating and forging bonds. Together, we will grow stronger." The elders nodded in agreement, their expressions softening. The weight of our journey began to lift, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. "Now," the elder continued, "let us discuss what comes next. Together, we will face the challenges ahead." As the elders convened, their voices mingled in a low, rhythmic chant that echoed off the cavern walls, creating an almost musical ambience. Othran stood beside us, his demeanor transformed, radiating pride. The weight of our earlier fears began to dissipate, replaced by an eagerness to forge ahead in our alliance with the Zarathians. The silver-scaled elder turned to us, his voice resonating through the hall. "Your creation embodies the adaptability of your species, a trait we greatly admire. However, our alliance must be built on more than just shared craftsmanship. We face a looming threat, one that endangers both our worlds." My heart sank at the mention of a threat. "What kind of threat?" I asked, unable to shake the feeling of impending danger. Othran's expression turned grave. "The Chircath. They are a predatory species, ruthless and cunning, who have long sought to dominate our planet. They have begun to encroach on our territory, disrupting the balance we have maintained for centuries." "What do they want?" Jake asked, confusion mixing with concern. "They seek to drain our planet's resources and enslave its inhabitants. They believe they can overpower us by brute force alone," the elder replied, his many eyes narrowing with resolve. "We must stand together to repel this menace." "Count us in," I said without hesitation. "We're not afraid to fight, but we'd like to know more about their tactics and strengths." "Very well," the elder said. "But first, you must prepare yourselves. There is much to learn about the Chircath, and it is not a lesson to be taken lightly." Othran gestured for us to follow him deeper into the cavern, leading us through twisting tunnels adorned with murals that depicted ancient battles against the Chircath. The artistry spoke of valor, resilience, and a culture steeped in struggle. As we walked, Othran elaborated on the Chircath's history. They were once a fractured species, divided among various clans. However, they have united under a single warlord, a powerful entity known as Gareth. His ambition knows no bounds, and he possesses the ability to bend lesser beings to his will. Jake and I exchanged worried glances. A mind-controlling warlord was not the kind of enemy we had anticipated. "We must gather our resources," I said, determined. "What do we have at our disposal?" "The Chircath underestimate the ingenuity of other species," Othran explained. "They rely heavily on brute force and sheer numbers. However, they have a weakness, a lack of adaptability. They are rigid in their ways, and we can exploit that." We reached a large chamber filled with holographic displays and tactical maps of the surrounding areas. Othran tapped a control panel, and the holograms flickered to life, revealing the landscape and recent movements of Chircath forces. "This is our territory," he explained, tracing a path on the map. "And here is where they have breached our defenses." I squinted at the map, trying to wrap my head around the strategic implications. "If we can predict their movements, we might be able to ambush them." "Exactly," Othran affirmed. "But we will need to move quickly. Gareth's forces are aggressive and unrelenting. We must rally our allies and fortify our positions before they strike." "Then let's do it," Jake said, enthusiasm palpable in his voice. "We can coordinate attacks and build defenses together." "Indeed," Othran replied, the glint of admiration returning to his eyes. "But first, we need a plan that capitalizes on our strengths. You will join our scouts and learn the terrain, understand the nuances of this world. It will be crucial when we confront the Chircath." We nodded, steeling ourselves for the challenge ahead. I felt a surge of adrenaline, the anticipation of battle invigorating my spirit. Hours later, we were prepared for our first reconnaissance mission. Clad in Zarathian gear, we blended more seamlessly into the jungle, the vibrant colors of our clothing reflecting the local flora. Othran led our small group, his presence reassuring and authoritative. As we trekked through the thick underbrush, I remained acutely aware of my surroundings, the sounds of the jungle now a symphony of life. Othran had provided us with stealth techniques, emphasizing the need to remain unseen by the Chircath patrols. Suddenly, we heard the unmistakable sounds of a Chircath squad approaching, a cacophony of guttural growls and clanking metal. We quickly ducked behind a cluster of oversized ferns, our hearts racing as we watched the aliens pass by. The Chircath were terrifyingly large, their bodies rippling with muscle beneath their jagged armor. They wielded weapons that shimmered with a menacing glow, energy crackling around their edges. I couldn't shake the dread pooling in my stomach. "Stick close and follow my lead," Othran whispered. "We will observe their movements and gather intel on their numbers." We trailed the squad through the dense foliage, moving silently and cautiously. My mind raced as I tried to comprehend their tactics and strategies, mentally taking notes on their formations and interactions. "Look there," Othran pointed subtly to a clearing where a group of Chircath were engaging in what appeared to be a training exercise. "This is an opportunity. We can learn how they fight." I watched in fascination as they displayed their combat techniques, powerful strikes, fluid movements, and a disturbing efficiency. Yet, even in their dominance, I saw the lack of cohesion. They were powerful individuals, but lacked the adaptability of a united front. "Here's the plan," I whispered to Jake and Othran. "We need to exploit their rigidity. If we can draw them into an environment that favors our strengths, we can turn the tide in our favor." Othran nodded, impressed. "That is precisely the strategy we need. We will lure them into the narrow ravines of the jungle, where their numbers will be less advantageous." The excitement of the plan surged through us. We returned to our camp to relay our findings to the elders, who listened intently as we laid out our strategy. "The Chircath may be fearsome, but they are not invincible," I concluded. "With our combined knowledge, we can outsmart them." The elders exchanged glances, and the silver-scaled elder spoke once more. "Your courage and insight will guide us through this dark time. Prepare yourselves. The battle for our world begins at dawn." As dawn broke over the verdant landscape, the sunlight filtered through the dense foliage, casting dappled patterns on the ground. The air was thick with tension and the scent of damp earth, the anticipation of the impending battle electrifying the atmosphere. Jake and I gathered our gear, ensuring our weapons were primed and ready. The Zarathians moved with purpose around us, their grace and fluidity a testament to their combat training. Othran approached, his expression a blend of determination and anxiety. "Today is a crucial moment for both our peoples. We must remain united, vigilant, and adapt to whatever the Chircath throw our way." His eyes held a spark of confidence, instilling a sense of calm. As we assembled with the other warriors, I couldn't help but admire their resilience. Each Zarathian bore the marks of their culture-painted scales and tribal tattoos that told stories of bravery and sacrifice. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of camaraderie. We were all in this together, standing against a common enemy. The elders gathered us in a huddle, their voices hushed yet commanding. "Listen closely," the silver-scaled elder began. "The Chircath will approach from the east, using the valley as their path. They believe the dense jungle will conceal their movements, but we will use that to our advantage. Lure them into the narrow ravines, and we will strike when they are vulnerable." I nodded, mentally mapping out the terrain we had scouted the previous day. The ravines offered a tactical advantage, their steep walls limiting the Chircath's numbers and forcing them into tighter formations. It was the perfect trap. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the treetops, we set out, moving swiftly and quietly through the underbrush. The air was alive with sounds: the rustling of leaves, distant animal calls, and the faint hum of energy weapons charging in the hands of our allies. Every footfall was deliberate. Every glance around was filled with purpose. We reached the designated location, a narrow ravine flanked by towering cliffs on either side. The dense foliage created a natural barrier, providing us with ample cover. As we settled into position, a collective silence enveloped us. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears, adrenaline surging through my veins. Suddenly, the distant growls of the Chircath reached us, a haunting symphony that sent shivers down my spine. I exchanged glances with Jake, whose eyes were wide with determination. "This is it," I whispered, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Remember, we wait for Othrin's signal," Jake reminded me, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Time seemed to stretch as we waited, each second feeling like an eternity. Then, from the corner of my eye, I spotted the first wave of Chircath emerging from the jungle, their armored bodies glistening in the morning sun. They moved with a confidence that belied their ignorance of the trap laid before them. I held my breath, watching as the Chircath stepped into the ravine, the narrow walls towering around them. They were unaware of the ambush waiting just beyond the brush. Othrin raised a hand, signaling us to prepare. My grip tightened on my weapon, every muscle in my body poised to spring into action. With a swift motion, Othrin released a piercing whistle, a signal that shattered the silence like glass. In an instant, chaos erupted. We surged from our hiding places, charging into the fray with fierce battle cries. The sound of our voices mixed with the Chircath's startled growls as we struck with precision. The tight confines of the ravine amplified our attacks, forcing the Chircath into disarray. "Move! Flank them!" I shouted, adrenaline driving my words as we engaged the enemy. Our training and strategy were paying off as we exploited their confusion, cutting through their ranks with calculated strikes. Yet, just as victory seemed within our grasp, a chilling roar echoed from the depths of the ravine. My blood ran cold as I turned, my eyes widening in horror. A colossal figure emerged, a Chircath warlord, Gareth himself, towering above his soldiers. His armor was adorned with trophies from countless battles, and his eyes glowed with a malevolent intensity. "This is where your defiance ends," Gareth bellowed, his voice reverberating through the ravine. The air crackled with energy as he raised his weapon, a massive energy blade that shimmered ominously. "Form a line," Othrin commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. We regrouped quickly, falling into formation as Gareth advanced toward us, his presence demanding attention and respect. "Focus fire on the warlord," I shouted, my voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. We unleashed a barrage of energy blasts toward him, but Gareth moved with astonishing speed, deflecting our shots with ease. "Your efforts are futile," he taunted, his laughter echoing ominously. "You think you can challenge me? You are nothing but insects before my might." I gritted my teeth, frustration boiling within me. "We can't let him intimidate us. Keep attacking." As our weapons fired relentlessly, the tide of battle began to shift. The Chircath were forced to regroup, struggling against our coordinated assault. I could see Othrin's eyes darting, calculating their next move. "Flank him from the left," Othrin ordered, leading a small group of warriors to encircle Gareth. It was a bold move, one that required us to split our forces, but it was necessary to keep him distracted. I joined Jake, who was firing his weapon with steady aim. We need to keep pushing. If we can hold him off long enough, we might create an opening. The ground shook as Gareth swung his blade, cleaving through our ranks. A shrill cry pierced the air as one of our warriors fell. Rage ignited within me. I refused to let his cruelty define this battle. "Jake, let's go," I yelled, leading the charge toward Gareth, our movements synchronized. We dodged his swings, using the environment to our advantage. I ducked beneath his blade, feeling the rush of air as it sliced past me. "Now," I shouted, aiming for the exposed flank where his armor was weaker. Jake followed suit, and together we unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The blasts struck true, catching Gareth off guard. He staggered back, his roar of pain mingling with the chaos around us. For a fleeting moment, I felt a surge of hope. "Keep pressing," Othrin shouted from behind us, his voice a rallying cry. But just as I began to believe we could overcome him, Gareth's eyes narrowed. With a sudden surge of power, he unleashed a shockwave that sent us flying backward, crashing into the ground. I gasped for breath. The wind knocked out of me. Pain radiated through my body, but I struggled to rise, my vision blurred as I looked toward the battlefield. The Cheercath regrouped, their numbers swarming toward us like a tide. Desperation gripped me, but I forced myself to focus. We couldn't let fear take hold. We had to push through. Through the haze, I saw Othrin rallying our warriors, his fierce determination infectious. "We fight for our homes, for our people. They will not take our world." His words ignited a fire within me. I clutched my weapon, pushing myself to my feet. I would not yield. "Let's finish this," I yelled, charging back into the fray, renewed purpose fueling my every move. Jake followed close behind, and together, we faced the Cheercath once more. The chaos of battle consumed me, each pulse of adrenaline driving me forward as I charged back into the fray. The air crackled with energy blasts and the sounds of combat, a cacophony of roars, shouts, and the hum of weapons discharging. I could feel the heat of the moment pressing against my skin, every instinct honing in on the Cheercath swarming around us. With renewed determination, I swung my weapon at the nearest Cheercath soldier, the energy blade slicing through the air with a satisfying crackle. The creature staggered back, confusion etched across its scaled features. I pressed the advantage, my movements a blur as I maneuvered through the melee, dodging strikes and returning fire. Jake was a whirlwind beside me, his weapon dancing as he took down Cheercath one after another. "We need to keep pushing them back," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. "Right," I replied, adrenaline flooding my system. We fought side by side, every movement a testament to our training and trust in one another. The ravine's narrow confines forced the Cheercath into tight formations, their numbers working against them as we exploited every gap in their ranks. Amidst the chaos, I caught sight of Gareth, his massive figure a dark shadow looming over the battlefield. He was shaking off the effects of our earlier assault. Rage lit his features as he locked eyes with me. It felt as if the world around us faded, and it was just the two of us, one determined to prove his strength, and the other unwilling to back down. With a bellowing roar, Gareth charged toward us, his energy blade crackling ominously. I barely had time to react as he swung the weapon, the force of the strike sending shockwaves through the ground. I ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as the blade whizzed over my head. "Split up," I shouted to Jake, instinct kicking in. We needed to confuse him, draw him away from our main force. "I'll distract him." "Are you insane?" Jake yelled, concern flashing in his eyes. "It's our best shot. Just trust me," I responded, fear and determination mingling in my chest. I darted to the left, drawing Gareth's attention as I fired my weapon at him, the energy blast sparking against his armor. The warlord snarled, fury igniting in his eyes as he pivoted to pursue me. "You think you can escape me, human?" he roared, his voice reverberating through the ravine. I didn't answer. Instead, I sprinted deeper into the chaos, my heart pounding as I searched for cover. Gareth followed, his heavy footsteps echoing behind me, drowning out the sounds of the ongoing battle. I turned a sharp corner, narrowly avoiding another swing of his blade as I ducked behind a large boulder. My mind raced. Gareth was formidable, but he was also a singular target, focused solely on me. I needed to use that to our advantage. "Jake," I shouted, hoping he could hear me over the din. "Get the others and flank him. I'll keep him occupied." I peeked around the boulder just in time to see Jake nodding, determination in his eyes. He rallied our warriors, directing them to form a line and flank Gareth from behind. With a deep breath, I steadied myself. It was time to face the beast. I stepped out from behind the boulder, drawing Gareth's attention once more. "Come on, you oversized lizard. You want a real fight? Then bring it." He roared in response, his fury echoing through the ravine. "You will regret taunting me." He lunged forward, and I dove to the side just as his blade sliced through the air where I had stood moments before. Adrenaline surged as I rolled to my feet, quickly regaining my footing. I fired a series of shots at him, but Gareth deflected them effortlessly, his focus unwavering. It was infuriating, but I couldn't let that deter me. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of our warriors closing in, their shouts mingling with the distant sounds of combat. "Now," I yelled, knowing Jake would seize the opportunity. The ground trembled as our forces emerged from the shadows, flanking Gareth from both sides. We unleashed a torrent of energy blasts, driving him backward, the sheer force of our combined attack staggering him. "You think you can overpower me?" Gareth sneered, defiance evident in his stance. But I could see the cracks forming in his confidence as our united front pressed closer. "Together," I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Push him back." With a fierce battle cry, we surged forward, driving Gareth toward the edge of the ravine. The weight of his armor slowed him, and I could see his movements becoming less precise, the anger giving way to desperation. As we pressed the attack, Gareth retaliated, swinging his blade in wild arcs, but we were a whirlwind of motion, darting in and out, using the ravine's terrain to our advantage. Each time he swung, we evaded, pushing him further into the trap we had set. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my side. One of the Cheercath soldiers had taken advantage of my distraction, driving a blade into my armor. I stumbled back, gritting my teeth against the pain as I spun around, my weapon raised. The soldier was about to strike again, but Jake was there, firing a shot that sent the Cheercath tumbling backward. "Stay focused," he shouted, worry etched across his face. I nodded, my breath coming in quick bursts. I had to keep my head in the game. Gareth was still a threat, and our chance for victory hung in the balance. With a roar of defiance, I turned back to the warlord, who was struggling to maintain his footing as we closed in. "You're not winning this, Gareth. This is our home," I shouted, channeling every ounce of my resolve. "Then let's see how an insect can sting," I replied, charging forward, the fury of our people igniting a fire within me. I fired another barrage of shots, and Gareth retaliated, but his movements were slowing. With each blast, we chipped away at his defenses. The rest of our warriors flanked him, encircling him as he struggled to regain his composure. And then, in a final surge of effort, we all surged forward. "Now," I yelled, raising my weapon one last time. We unleashed everything we had, a torrent of energy that converged upon Gareth. His roar echoed through the ravine as our combined might struck him, the energy of our weapons exploding around him in a brilliant flash of light. As the dust settled, I could see him staggering, his form crumpling to the ground. The Cheercath around us faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. We had done it. We had taken down their warlord. I turned to Jake, breathing heavily, disbelief mingling with triumph in my chest. "We really did it," I said, incredulous. But before we could celebrate, a piercing scream echoed from the depths of the ravine. One of our warriors had fallen, and the Cheercath were regrouping, their morale bolstered by the sight of their fallen leader. "We need to keep fighting," I shouted, determination surging through me. "This isn't over." And as the battle raged on, I knew that our victory would come not from strength alone, but from our unwavering spirit, the very essence of humanity that would push us through the darkness. The battle raged on, a relentless tide of chaos and fury. With Gareth down, our forces surged forward, their resolve bolstered by the sight of their fallen warlord. Yet, the fight was far from over. The Cheercath, enraged and desperate, regrouped and retaliated with a newfound ferocity, their instinct for survival kicking in as they rallied around their remaining leaders. "Hold the line," I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the cacophony. The adrenaline coursing through my veins amplified every sensation. The heat of energy blasts, the acrid scent of smoke, and the shouts of my comrades fueled my determination. We had come too far to falter now. I glanced at Jake, who was reloading his weapon, determination etched across his features. "We need to split their forces. If we can draw them into the narrow sections of the ravine, we can pick them off one by one." "Got it," he shouted back, nodding at our other warriors. We pushed forward, herding the Cheercath toward a narrow canyon wall, where their numbers would count against them. As we advanced, I could see our warriors falling into formation, ready to take on the enemy. "Ready?" I asked, and Jake grinned at me, his eyes alight with battle lust. "Always." With a battle cry, we charged forward, leading our forces into the fray. The Cheercath soldiers met us with snarls and hisses, their energy blades crackling as they swung at us. I ducked under one attack, spinning low and firing at the feet of the nearest enemy, sending him crashing to the ground. Jake was a whirlwind beside me, blasting through the ranks, each shot calculated and deadly. Together, we pressed the attack, forcing the Cheercath back into the narrow gorge, where our numbers began to tell. But as the tide turned in our favor, I felt an unsettling sensation in the pit of my stomach. There was something lurking just beyond the chaos, an ominous presence that seemed to hang in the air. I glanced around, my instincts on high alert. And then I saw a flash of movement from above. My heart raced as I looked up to see a larger Cheercath figure standing on the ridge above, its scaled body looming against the sky, a grotesque silhouette filled with malice. It was one of their commanders, a powerful creature exuding authority and menace. "Jake, we've got company," I shouted, pointing upward. "Fall back," he yelled, signaling our warriors to retreat momentarily. The tide of battle shifted, and as we pulled back, the Cheercath commander leapt down, landing with a thundering impact that sent shockwaves through the ground. "Humans," it roared, its voice deep and resonant. "You think you can conquer us? You are nothing but vermin." With every ounce of defiance I could muster, I raised my weapon and shouted, "We are not vermin. We are the Deathworlders you underestimated." The commander snarled, its eyes narrowing as it lunged forward, blade drawn. I fired, but it evaded my shot with an agility I hadn't expected, closing the distance between us. It swung its blade, and I barely had time to react, ducking just in time as the energy crackled above my head. "Jake, cover me," I shouted as I scrambled backward, desperate to gain some distance. Our warriors regrouped, forming a line in front of me, weapons raised to intercept the incoming threat. Jake fired a volley of shots at the commander, forcing it to divert its attention momentarily. The shots landed with explosive force, but the commander absorbed the energy, its armor pulsing with a sinister glow. "Fall back," I ordered, my heart racing. "We need to regroup and strategize. We can't take it head-on." As we retreated, I caught sight of our forces shifting, trying to maintain their morale even as fear threatened to seep into their ranks. But we had fought too hard to let it all crumble now. "Listen up," I shouted, raising my voice above the chaos. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for our home, for every person who ever doubted us. We won't let this beast take that from us." The energy in the air shifted, and I could see the resolve returning to my comrades. They nodded, their eyes alight with determination. We formed a plan, drawing the Cheercath commander toward the narrowest point in the ravine. If we could funnel it there, we could concentrate our fire and overwhelm it. As the commander advanced, its eyes locked onto me with a predatory gaze. I felt a rush of fear but steeled myself. "Now," I shouted, signaling our warriors to spring into action. We fell back into the narrow gorge, the commander pursuing us with relentless ferocity. It moved with a speed that sent chills down my spine, but I focused on keeping my footing, drawing it deeper into the trap. Once we were at the narrowest point, I turned to face the beast. "Fire!" I shouted, raising my weapon high. Our warriors unleashed a hailstorm of energy blasts, the concentrated fire striking the commander all at once. It staggered back, its snarls turning into a roar of rage. But we kept firing, pushing it back, refusing to relent. And just when it seemed as if it might break through our line, I felt a surge of inspiration. "Switch to explosives," I called out, quickly reloading my weapon with a new type of energy charge. My comrades followed suit, loading their weapons with explosive rounds. We held the line, and as the commander attempted to regain its footing, we unleashed a barrage of blasts that detonated around it. The explosion rocked the gorge, the force knocking the commander off its feet and sending it crashing into the walls. The ground trembled beneath us, and the Chircath soldiers faltered, their morale shattering as they witnessed the might of our combined efforts. We pressed our advantage, pouring fire into the downed commander until it lay still, defeated. Cheers erupted from our ranks, the sound echoing through the ravine as we began to rally. But even in our moment of triumph, I knew the fight wasn't over. The Chircath would retaliate, but we had proven our strength. We had taken down their warlord and their commander, and that made all the difference. As the battle raged on, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. We were not just fighting to survive. We were fighting for a future where humanity could thrive. With renewed resolve, I turned to Jake. "Let's finish this." "Together," he replied, a fierce grin spreading across his face. And with that, we plunged back into the fray, the battle still roaring around us. But now we fought not just for survival, but for victory. The tide of war was shifting, and together, we would forge a new destiny for our people. The sun hung low over the vast plains of Carthan Roman IV, its golden rays casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. As I stood atop a rocky outcropping, I couldn't help but reflect on the events of the past few weeks. The battle against the Chircath had been brutal, and though we emerged victorious, the taste of that victory was bittersweet. Peace was a fragile thing, and I could feel the tension in the air like static electricity before a storm. My name is Jake, a human soldier from Earth, and I never imagined I would find myself as a peacekeeper on a death world. After our battle, I had hoped for reconciliation, but rumors swirled among the ranks that a faction of Chircath soldiers was gathering strength, fueled by anger and betrayal. "Jake," a voice broke through my thoughts. It was Greg, my fellow soldier and best friend, rushing up the path with a look of concern etched on his face. "You need to see this." I turned to him, curiosity piqued. "See what?" He gestured for me to follow him. We descended the rocky outcrop and made our way toward the temporary camp set up for the humans and the Chircath. As we approached, the tension was palpable. Chircath warriors and human soldiers mingled uneasily, each side eyeing the other with suspicion. We entered the makeshift command tent, where Captain Darnell, the leader of our forces, was deep in conversation with Gareth, the Chircath warrior who had fought alongside us during the last battle. Gareth's scales glimmered in the dim light, and I could see the weariness in his eyes. "Jake, Greg," Darnell said, acknowledging our presence. "We have a situation. There are reports of a Chircath faction forming in the eastern hills, led by a warlord named Calthar." "Calthar?" I repeated, my stomach sinking. "Isn't he Gareth's brother?" Gareth nodded, his expression darkening. "Yes. He was not pleased with our decision to seek peace with you humans. He believes that we should continue the fight." I glanced at Greg, who looked just as concerned as I felt. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice low. "We need to confront this threat before it escalates," Darnell said firmly. "We can't afford another war. If we're going to make peace, we need to show Calthar that we're serious. Gareth stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. I will go. I can reason with my brother. I shook my head. This isn't just a family issue anymore, Gareth. Calthar has a following now. He'll see you as a traitor. We need to go as a united front. Darnell nodded in agreement. I think Jake is right. If we want to prevent this uprising, we must approach Calthar together. Gareth hesitated, torn between his loyalty to his brother and the necessity of peace. I will go with you. But know this, if Calthar does not listen, I cannot guarantee your safety. Then we'll be ready, I said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and purple, we prepared for our journey to confront Calthar. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled over me. I had fought hard to earn the trust of the Cheercath, but I knew that Calthar's wrath could shatter everything we had built. The journey to the eastern hills was fraught with uncertainty. As we traveled, I couldn't help but notice the wary glances exchanged between our two species. The Cheercath and humans walked side by side, yet an invisible line separated us, a chasm of history and mistrust that was hard to bridge. Are you sure you're ready for this? Greg asked as we marched along, keeping our voices low. I have to be, I replied, my gaze fixed ahead. If Calthar wants to go to war, we need to show him that we're not afraid. We need to demonstrate that humans can coexist with the Cheercath. Easier said than done, Greg muttered, shaking his head. What if he sees this as a challenge? What if he tries to take you out first? I chuckled darkly. Then he'll learn the hard way that humans don't go down easily. As we approached Calthar's stronghold, a fortified settlement nestled within the hills, the atmosphere grew heavier. It was a stark contrast to the unity we had tried to establish. The Cheercath warriors patrolling the perimeter glared at us, their eyes narrowed with hostility. We stepped into the clearing, the sound of our footsteps echoing off the stone walls. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. Let's try to be diplomatic, I whispered to Gareth, who nodded in agreement. We entered the main chamber, where Calthar awaited us. He stood tall, his scales a deep, menacing green, and his eyes were filled with a mix of anger and confusion. You dare approach me, Gareth, he spat, his voice a low growl. Have you come to betray your own kind? No, Calthar, Gareth replied, stepping forward. I have come to seek peace. The war is over, and we must find a way to coexist with the humans. Calthar's lips curled into a snarl. Coexist? With those who have shed our blood? You are a fool, Gareth. They will never accept us. Before Gareth could respond, I interjected, stepping into the light. We want to understand. We're not here to fight. We're here to forge an alliance. But we can't do that if you're plotting war. Calthar's gaze shifted to me, surprise flickering in his eyes. A human speaks? What do you know of our struggle? I know that you've lost a lot, I replied, my voice steady. But if you continue down this path, you'll lose even more. You'll lose everything. Calthar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. You think you can intimidate me? You are nothing but a speck of dust in the vastness of our existence. I met his gaze without flinching. Maybe so, but even specks of dust can gather into a storm. We can either unite and grow stronger together, or we can continue to fight and tear each other apart. Calthar's expression shifted, and for a brief moment, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. But then he straightened, his resolve hardening. You know nothing of my people or my pain. You cannot understand the loss we have suffered. No, but I want to, I said, my voice softer now. We want to understand, Calthar. That's why we're here. He hesitated, the tension in the room thickening. Then, as if a decision had been made, he turned away, pacing the chamber like a caged beast. I will not be swayed by your words, human. I will rally my warriors, and we will rise against you. Then you will lead your people to destruction, Gareth said, his voice rising in anger. You will destroy everything our ancestors fought for. Calthar whirled around, his eyes blazing. I will do what I must to protect our honor. You have betrayed our kind, Gareth, and you will regret it. With that, Calthar signaled for his guards, and they surrounded us, weapons drawn. It was clear that our attempt at diplomacy had failed. We were outnumbered, and Calthar was unwilling to listen. We need to leave, I whispered to Gareth. Now. As we backed away, I felt the weight of impending conflict pressing down on us. The gulf between our species felt wider than ever. Calthar had made his choice, and now we had to make ours. Back at the camp, the atmosphere was grim. Darnell and the other soldiers gathered around, their faces etched with concern as I recounted our failed negotiations. They're going to attack, I said, my voice heavy with defeat. Calthar is rallying his forces. Darnell rubbed his temples, clearly frustrated. We need to prepare for the worst. We can't let them surprise us. Gareth stood at the edge of the circle, his fist clenched at his sides. This is not just a battle for territory. Calthar seeks to prove himself as a warlord, to reclaim the honor he believes is lost. We must find a way to reach him before it's too late. Any ideas? Greg asked, crossing his arms. Gareth turned to face us, determination gleaming in his eyes. I will go back to Calthar, but this time I will not approach him as a brother. I will confront him as a warrior. If he wishes to fight, then I will show him that the path to honor is not through bloodshed, but through unity. Are you sure that's wise? Darnell asked, a note of caution in his voice. Yes, Gareth replied firmly. If Calthar wishes to challenge me, I will accept. But I will not do so alone. I need you, Jake. I need the humans to stand beside me. I felt a swell of pride at his words. We're with you, Gareth. Whatever it takes to bring peace. As we prepared for the confrontation, a renewed sense of purpose washed over me. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but I was ready to face it. For the sake of our future, for the sake of both our peoples, we had to stand together. The sun rose over Carthon Roman 4, casting its warm glow upon the battlefield that would soon become the arena for our confrontation. The air buzzed with anticipation as we assembled our forces, humans and Cheercath standing shoulder to shoulder. Gareth stood at the forefront, his eyes locked on the horizon where Calthar's forces were rumored to gather. I could see the fire in his gaze, the determination to protect both his people and the alliance we had fought so hard to establish. Remember, Gareth said, turning to us, we are not here to destroy. We are here to prove that we can coexist. If Calthar attacks, defend yourselves, but do not retaliate unless provoked. Got it, Greg replied, gripping his weapon tightly. But if he comes at us, we won't let him take us down without a fight. A murmur of agreement rippled through the ranks. I felt the weight of responsibility heavy on my shoulders as I scanned the faces around me. We were all here for the same reason, to protect what we had built together. As the morning sun climbed higher, we received word that Calthar was approaching. I could feel the tension in the air thickening, like a bowstring drawn tight, ready to snap. I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for what was to come. Moments later, Calthar emerged from the shadows, flanked by his loyal warriors. His presence was imposing, and a hush fell over the crowd as he stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over us like a predator sizing up its prey. Gareth, Calthar growled, his voice a low rumble. You have betrayed your people. You stand here with these humans as if they are your kin. You will pay for your treachery. Gareth stepped forward, his posture unwavering. I have not betrayed our people, brother. I stand here to offer a choice. We can unite and build a future together, or we can continue to spill blood over old grudges. Calthar sneered, his anger palpable. You think they will accept us? You think they will not turn on us the moment we lower our guard? They have shown us kindness, Gareth insisted. They want to understand us. Can't you see that fighting will only lead to our destruction? Calthar shook his head, his expression one of disbelief. You are weak, Gareth. Weakness is not the path to honor. If you will not join me in battle, then I will take what I want by force." With that declaration, Calthar raised his weapon, signaling his warriors to advance. The tension snapped, and the battlefield erupted into chaos. "Fall back," I shouted, grabbing Greg and pulling him away from the advancing Cheercath. "We need to hold our ground and regroup." We formed a defensive line, preparing for the onslaught. I could see Gareth moving among his warriors, trying to de-escalate the conflict, but Calthar's forces were relentless. "Watch your flanks," Greg yelled, firing his weapon at an approaching Cheercath. "They're trying to surround us." I aimed my weapon at the incoming attackers, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The clash of metal and the sounds of battle filled the air, but amidst the chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't how it was supposed to end. Suddenly, a familiar figure emerged from the chaos: Calthar himself. He was charging toward us, his eyes ablaze with fury. I raised my weapon to aim, but Gareth stepped in front of me. "No," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "This is my battle." "Gareth, are you crazy? You can't take him on alone," I yelled, but he was already charging forward. "Brother," Gareth shouted, his voice echoing across the battlefield. "This is not the way." Calthar paused, his expression momentarily faltering. "You would rather stand with these humans than fight for your people." "I would rather stand with anyone who seeks peace than fight a senseless war," Gareth declared, his voice resolute. The chaos around us faded into the background as the two brothers faced off. I felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. If Gareth could reach Calthar, maybe there was still a chance to stop the bloodshed. But Calthar's anger flared once more. "You have dishonored our family. I will not allow your weakness to tarnish our name." With that, Calthar lunged at Gareth, their weapons clashing in a furious exchange. The two brothers danced around each other, their movements a deadly ballet. I could see the pain in Gareth's eyes as he fought not just for his life, but for his brother's soul. "Stop this," I yelled, my voice rising above the din. "You're both brothers. You can end this." But Calthar was too far gone, consumed by rage. With each blow, I could see Gareth trying to reach him, trying to pull him back from the edge, but Calthar's fury blinded him. As the battle raged on, I felt an urgency rising within me. We had to intervene, but how? I couldn't let them destroy each other. I glanced at Greg, and he nodded, understanding the plan without a word. We would have to distract Calthar, give Gareth the opening he needed. "On three," I whispered to Greg, positioning ourselves at the edge of the fray. 1, 2. With a deep breath, we shouted together, "Calthar!" The warlord turned, his gaze shifting from Gareth to us, confusion flaring momentarily. It was the opening Gareth needed. "Brother," Gareth called, desperation flooding his voice. "You don't have to do this. Join me, and together we can find a better way." Calthar hesitated, his weapon lowering slightly. I could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. "Think of our people," Gareth continued, stepping closer. "We can rise together. You don't have to fight us." As the tension hung thick in the air, I felt the eyes of both humans and Cheercath upon us. Would Calthar listen, or would he let his anger lead him to ruin? The standoff stretched on, tension crackling like electricity in the air. Calthar's expression shifted, confusion battling with anger as he weighed his options. The shouts of warriors faded into the background, all eyes fixed on the two brothers. Gareth took a step forward, his weapon lowered, signaling peace. "Calthar, this isn't what we were meant to be. We were meant to protect our people, not destroy them. You are my brother, and I will not let you fall into this darkness." For a moment, Calthar faltered, his grip on his weapon wavering. I could see the internal conflict raging within him, the deep-seated pain and anger fighting against the flicker of hope Gareth offered. "Brother," Calthar said, his voice low and trembling. "You don't understand what it means to be a warrior. Our honor." "Our honor?" Gareth interrupted, his voice rising with passion. "What honor is there in killing our own? What honor is there in fighting against those who wish to help us? We can find a new path, Calthar. We can build a future together, for both our peoples. The weight of Gareth's words hung in the air, and I held my breath, hoping against hope that Calthar would see reason. The battlefield felt suspended in time, the chaos around us fading into an eerie silence as all eyes focused on the two brothers. Finally, Calthar's weapon lowered fully, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "You would stand with them? After everything they have done?" "They fought to protect us," Gareth said firmly, "and they have shown us compassion. We can either continue to shed blood or work together to create a future worthy of our ancestors." The moment stretched on, uncertainty hanging heavily. Calthar's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, the anger slowly fading as he faced the truth of his brother's words. "Why should I believe you?" Calthar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I believe in us," Gareth replied, his gaze unwavering. "And I believe that together, we can make a difference. Let us show our people that there is strength in unity, not division." Calthar hesitated, the fire in his eyes cooling as he looked around at the assembled warriors, both Cheercath and human, waiting with bated breath. "What if they do not accept me?" "Then we will make them accept you," Gareth said, stepping closer. "We will show them that together we are stronger." With a final flicker of doubt, Calthar dropped his weapon completely, his body sagging under the weight of his emotions. I do not know how to lead without war." Gareth placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Then we will learn together. You are not alone in this fight." The moment was transformative, the tension that had gripped the battlefield dissolving as warriors began to lower their weapons. The realization that peace was possible washed over us like a wave, and I could see hope blooming in the eyes of those around me. As Calthar looked into Gareth's eyes, I could see the connection. They shared the bond of brotherhood that had been tested but never broken. "I will try," Calthar said, his voice filled with vulnerability. "I will try for you, brother." With that declaration, the tension that had threatened to tear us apart faded completely. The battle was over before it had truly begun, and in its place stood a new alliance forged from courage and understanding. As cheers erupted around us, I felt a warmth spreading through me. We had not just averted disaster, we had taken the first steps toward a future where humans and Cheercath could coexist. As the cheers of victory echoed across the battlefield, I looked at the scene unfolding before me with a mix of relief and disbelief. The tension that had threatened to consume us all moments before had transformed into an unexpected celebration. Warriors embraced, tears of joy glistened in their eyes, and the heavy weight of conflict lifted as hope settled into the air. Gareth and Calthar stood at the center of it all, their faces reflecting a myriad of emotions: pain, forgiveness, and a budding determination to move forward. The bond between the brothers had survived the darkest of trials, emerging stronger and more resilient. "Together, we will rebuild," Gareth declared, raising his arms to address both humans and Cheercath. "This is only the beginning of our journey toward unity." As the crowd roared in approval, I felt a wave of exhilaration wash over me. It was a turning point for both our peoples, a chance to forge a new path free from the shadows of the past. "Let's get to work," Greg said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We have a lot to do if we want to make this alliance stick." "Agreed," I replied, scanning the faces around us. "We need to establish communication between our peoples, share knowledge, and create a framework for collaboration." As the day wore on, we gathered both humans and Cheercath to discuss our next steps. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and uncertainty as we outlined our vision for a united future. Ideas flowed freely, proposals were made, and we worked together to identify common ground. "Education is key," I suggested, leaning into the conversation. "If we can establish cultural exchanges, we can break down the barriers of misunderstanding." Calthar nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. "We must also create a council, a governing body that represents both our peoples. It will take time, but it is crucial for maintaining peace." Gareth agreed, adding, "Let us start with joint missions, combining our strengths. We can tackle common challenges together, showing our peoples that we are stronger as allies." As discussions continued, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was not just about averting war, it was about building a legacy for future generations. The mistakes of the past would not dictate our future. Days turned into weeks, and we worked tirelessly to establish our plans. Both humans and Cheerkath gathered in council, sharing ideas and forging relationships. It was heartening to see our two cultures begin to blend, traditions being shared, laughter ringing out, and a mutual respect blossoming. Yet, amidst the progress, there were still challenges. There were factions within both communities that resisted the idea of unity. Whispers of distrust circulated, and I felt the weight of that doubt pressing down on our efforts. Not everyone is convinced this alliance is a good idea, I confided to Gareth one evening as we walked through the makeshift camp, watching families from both sides interact. I know, he replied, his expression serious. We must work harder to show them the benefits of our unity. We need to demonstrate that together, we are capable of greatness. Perhaps we could organize a joint celebration, I suggested, the idea forming in my mind. A festival to showcase our cultures, with music, food, and stories. It could help bridge the gap. Gareth smiled, the light returning to his eyes. That is an excellent idea. A celebration will give us a chance to build goodwill and camaraderie. Let's set the date. As plans for the festival took shape, I felt a surge of optimism. The celebration would not only highlight our differences, but also emphasize our shared humanity, our desire for peace, joy, and connection. However, as preparations began, I received word of a troubling development. A faction of Calthar's supporters had gone rogue, unwilling to accept the new alliance. They were planning an attack on a human settlement, seeing it as an opportunity to undermine the unity we had worked so hard to build. I rushed to Gareth and Calthar with the news, urgency coloring my words. We need to act fast. If they attack, it could unravel everything we've accomplished. Calthar's face darkened, the tension returning. We cannot let this happen. We must find them before they strike. Gareth nodded, determination in his eyes. We will gather our forces and track them down. This is our chance to prove to our peoples that we will not allow division to win. With a plan set in motion, we rallied our combined forces, Cheerkath and humans standing shoulder to shoulder once more. We were no longer just individuals fighting for survival. We were allies, united in purpose. As we set out to confront the rogue faction, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. This would be our moment to showcase our strength, to show that our alliance was unbreakable. We would not let the fear of the past dictate our future. The terrain shifted beneath our feet as we navigated the dense forest that separated our camp from the human settlement. The air was thick with tension, every rustle of leaves echoing the urgency of our mission. Gareth led the way, his determination palpable. We need to move quickly, he urged, glancing back at the assembled warriors. Every second counts. We must protect those who look to us for guidance. Greg marched beside me, his expression serious. We have to be strategic. If we walk into this blindly, we'll just escalate the conflict. Right, I replied, taking a deep breath. Let's focus on containment first. We don't want to start a full-blown battle if we can avoid it. As we pressed deeper into the woods, the atmosphere grew heavier. The silence was unnerving, the only sounds being the crunch of our boots against the foliage. I could feel the tension building within our group, and I knew we were all aware of what was at stake. Suddenly, a shout pierced the stillness. They're here. A Cheerkath scout had spotted movement in the distance, and panic rippled through our ranks. Stay calm, Gareth commanded, raising his weapon. Remember our goal: contain them and protect the humans. We moved forward cautiously, weapons drawn. I could see a group of figures up ahead, their aggressive postures betraying their intentions. The rogue faction had gathered, their eyes wild with defiance. Let them come to us, I whispered to Greg, my heart racing. We'll draw them into a position where we can negotiate. As we positioned ourselves strategically, the rogue faction spotted us, their leader stepping forward with a sneer. You think you can control this? We will never bow to these aliens. I stepped forward, raising my hands in a gesture of peace. This isn't the way. We can find a better solution than violence. Solution? The leader laughed bitterly. You think these creatures will accept us? They will turn on us the moment we lower our guard. Your mistrust will only lead to more conflict, Gareth said, stepping beside me. We are stronger together. This is not about loyalty to one race or the other. It's about survival. The rogue leader's eyes narrowed, clearly torn. You speak of peace, but how can I trust you? You have already betrayed your own kind. I took a step closer, my voice steady. This is about protecting our families, our homes. If you attack, you will only provoke retaliation. But if we work together, we can create a future where all of our peoples can thrive. Enough of this, the leader shouted, raising his weapon. You are traitors. I will not listen to your lies. Then you leave us no choice, Greg shouted back, his weapon raised. Wait, I interjected, feeling the tension escalating. We can still talk this out. This is not the solution we need. But the rogue faction was already gearing up for battle. The air was thick with animosity, and the sound of weapons being drawn echoed in a tense silence. Defend yourselves, Gareth shouted as the first shot rang out. The battlefield erupted into chaos, warriors clashing as we fought to protect ourselves and our ideals. I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I moved through the chaos, searching for a way to de-escalate the situation. Amidst the turmoil, I spotted Calthar battling alongside us, his fierce determination a testament to his newfound commitment to our alliance. The rogue leader fought valiantly, but I could see the cracks in his resolve as he glanced back at his followers, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Brother, stop this, Gareth shouted, his voice rising above the noise. You're not just fighting against us, you're fighting against your own people. The rogue leader faltered, his grip on his weapon wavering as doubt seeped into his heart. I'm not afraid of you, he stammered, but I could see the cracks forming in his bravado. As the fighting raged on, I seized the moment. Listen to me. If we continue this, we will lose everything. Your people need you to lead them, not to destroy them. Gareth nodded, moving closer to the rogue leader, his weapon lowered. Join us. Together, we can be stronger. We do not have to fight. With a final look at his followers, the rogue leader hesitated. The tension in the air shifted as uncertainty loomed over the battlefield. You think I can just abandon them? They trust me. Trust is earned, I urged, my voice steady. Show them that peace is possible. Show them that you can be a leader worth following. The rogue leader's expression softened, the fire in his eyes dimming as he faced the reality of the situation. But what if they never accept me again? They will, Gareth said firmly. You have the chance to unite us all, to protect what truly matters. This battle is meaningless if it only leads to more pain. With those words, I felt the shift in the atmosphere. The fighting began to subside, warriors on both sides hesitating as they sensed the change. The rogue leader looked back at his faction, the weight of his decisions heavy upon him. Stand down, he finally shouted, his voice echoing through the woods. We will not fight today. The world fell silent, and I felt the tension dissolve as weapons were lowered. The rogue leader took a deep breath, stepping away from the chaos. I will try, for my people, for peace. Cheers erupted from our ranks, and I felt a surge of relief wash over me. We had averted disaster once more, but more importantly, we had taken another step towards unity. As we regrouped, I saw Gareth and Calthar embrace, the bond between them reaffirmed. Together, we will build a better future, Calthar said, his voice filled with conviction. I couldn't help but smile, feeling the warmth of hope radiating through our combined forces. We had faced adversity, but we had emerged stronger, united in our vision for a brighter tomorrow. The days following the conflict were filled with a sense of renewal. We had turned a potential catastrophe into a stepping stone toward true alliance. The rogue leader's decision to join us marked a significant turning point, and he worked tirelessly to mend the rift within his faction. With the festival approaching, excitement buzzed through both human and Chircath communities. Plans were made to celebrate our shared cultures, highlighting our differences while uniting under a common banner of peace. Decorations adorned the camp, laughter echoed in the air, and stories of our journeys began to intertwine. As I wandered through the festivities, I was struck by the vibrant tapestry of our united peoples. Humans and Chircath danced together, the rhythm of their movements blending into a harmonious celebration of life. Food from both cultures was shared, with spicy Chircath delicacies paired with human comfort foods, creating a feast that celebrated our differences. Amidst the joy, I sought out the rogue leader, who had become a valuable ally in our efforts to promote unity. "How are you feeling about everything?" I asked, a smile on my face as I approached him. "I am still learning," he admitted, his gaze sweeping across the festival. "But I see the hope in their eyes. This is what we fought for, isn't it?" "Yes," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. "This is just the beginning. Together, we can create something beautiful." The rogue leader nodded, his resolve strengthening. "I will do everything I can to ensure this alliance holds. We must remember that our strength lies in unity." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the festivities, Gareth took to the makeshift stage, calling for attention. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our cultures, but our shared future. We stand together as one, and together, we will thrive." Cheers erupted once more, and I felt the warmth of camaraderie enveloping us all. The festival was a testament to our resilience, a celebration of our ability to rise from the ashes of conflict. As the evening wore on, stories were shared around flickering fires, each tale strengthening the bonds between our peoples. I listened intently, my heart swelling with pride and hope. This was what we had fought for, a future where understanding and acceptance prevailed. But even amidst the joy, I knew challenges lay ahead. There were still factions resistant to our unity, those who clung to the past. It would take time, effort, and unwavering determination to solidify our alliance. As I joined Gareth and Calthar by the fire, I felt a sense of purpose surge within me. "We've accomplished so much," I said, looking at the gathering around us. "But there's still more work to do." Gareth nodded, his expression serious. "We cannot lose sight of our goal. We must keep our lines of communication open and continue working together." Calthar added, "And we must educate our people about one another. Understanding is key to preventing conflict." As the fire crackled, casting a warm glow over our faces, I felt the weight of our responsibilities settle upon us. We had come so far, but the journey toward unity was just beginning. The strength of our alliance would depend on our commitment to one another. As the stars twinkled above, I looked at my friends, warriors, leaders, and brothers. We were united in purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we would build a future where humans and Chircath could thrive side by side. As the festival reached its climax, laughter and music intertwined, creating an atmosphere that was both celebratory and reflective. I stood with Gareth and Calthar, gazing at the vibrant scene. People from both our races danced, shared stories, and savored the mingling flavors of our culinary traditions. This was a night of hope, a night to celebrate our hard-won unity. "Look at them," I said, nodding toward a group of Chircath and humans sharing a dance. "This is what we fought for, a future where our children can grow up side by side without fear." Gareth smiled, his eyes bright with determination. "And we will make sure it stays that way. The real work begins tomorrow, but tonight, we celebrate our progress." Calthar placed a hand on Gareth's shoulder. "It's more than just progress, it's a testament to our strength as allies. We've shown that we can overcome our differences for a common purpose." As the night deepened, Gareth stepped onto the makeshift stage once again, commanding the attention of both humans and Chircath. "Tonight, we stand not just as separate peoples, but as one community bound by a shared vision. We will face challenges ahead, but we will face them together." The crowd erupted in applause, and I felt a surge of emotion wash over me. We had come so far from the brink of war, and now we were embracing a future filled with promise. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. As we set to work on our initiatives, it became clear that the road to lasting unity would require dedication and collaboration from both sides. We began educational exchanges, bringing children from both races together in schools that emphasized shared history and culture. I watched as friendships blossomed. Humans taught Chircath children about Earth's unique flora and fauna, while Chircath shared their rich traditions and stories. The laughter and chatter that filled the classrooms became a symphony of hope. Yet, as we celebrated our achievements, we remained vigilant against dissent. The rogue faction had not entirely dissipated. Their influence lingered like a dark shadow over our newfound alliance. Whispers of discontent still circulated, sowing seeds of distrust among those who had not yet embraced change. One evening, as I sat with Gareth and Calthar around a fire, I voiced my concerns. What if we can't reach those who are still resistant? What if they act out again? We must remain united and visible, Gareth replied. If we show our peoples that we stand together, it will be harder for dissent to take root. Calthar nodded in agreement. We will host a joint council meeting, inviting representatives from both sides to share their concerns and ideas. Open dialogue is essential to prevent misunderstandings. As the days turned into weeks, the joint council meetings became a platform for communication and understanding. We addressed fears head-on, offering reassurance and solidarity. The more we talked, the more we built trust among our peoples. One night, I stood before the council, addressing both humans and Chircath gathered in the Great Hall. We have come a long way, but the path ahead is filled with challenges. It is up to us to continue this journey together. Let us not forget the strength that lies in our unity. The room fell silent as I spoke, the weight of my words resonating with everyone present. I could see nods of agreement, the flicker of hope in their eyes. We were beginning to understand the power we held together. Months passed, and the festival we had celebrated became an annual tradition, a symbol of our enduring unity. We invited dignitaries and leaders from surrounding planets to witness our alliance, showcasing the strength of our combined cultures. On the day of the first anniversary of our unity, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. We prepared for a grand celebration, one that would leave a lasting impression on all who attended. As I stood with Gareth and Calthar, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. "This is our moment," Gareth said, gazing at the preparations. "We're not just celebrating our cultures, we're showing the galaxy that unity is possible." As the festivities commenced, we welcomed visitors from across the cosmos. Dignitaries from neighboring planets marveled at our celebration, witnessing firsthand the fruits of our labor. The sounds of music and laughter echoed through the air as we shared our stories and traditions. Then, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the celebration, I took the stage alongside Gareth and Calthar. Today, we stand here not as humans in Chircath, but as a single community united, strong, and ready to face the future together. Applause erupted from the crowd, filling my heart with warmth. This was the culmination of our efforts, a testament to what we had achieved together. The atmosphere shifted from one of cautious hope to unbridled joy, a promise of what lay ahead. As the festival drew to a close, I stood by the edge of the gathering, reflecting on the journey we had taken. The hardships we had faced felt distant now, overshadowed by the strength we had built together. A gentle hand rested on my shoulder, and I turned to see Calthar beside me. "We have done something remarkable," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "This is just the beginning. We must continue to nurture this alliance." "Yes," I replied, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "We've shown the galaxy that unity is possible, but we must remain vigilant. We must keep working together to overcome any challenges that arise." Gareth joined us, his eyes shining with determination. "And we will. Our alliance will become a beacon of hope for others to follow. We will inspire them to set aside their differences and work toward a common goal." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. We had forged a path of unity, one that would resonate for generations to come. The struggles of the past had brought us together, and now we stood on the brink of a brighter future. Hand in hand, we looked out over the celebration, knowing that together we had built something extraordinary. We had not just avoided conflict, we had created a legacy of hope and resilience. The path ahead would be filled with challenges, but as long as we stood united, there was nothing we could not overcome. And as the festival lights shimmered against the dark sky, I knew that our journey was only just beginning. In the years that followed, our alliance grew stronger. The Joint Council became a model for interstellar cooperation, inspiring other worlds to seek peace through understanding. The once divided peoples of Earth and Chirkath now stood as allies, their bond unbreakable. As I walked through the shared community, I saw children from both races playing together, their laughter ringing out in joyous harmony. The seeds of unity had taken root, blossoming into a vibrant tapestry of cultures intertwined. Our shared story became one of resilience and hope, echoing throughout the galaxy as a reminder that even the deepest divides could be bridged with compassion and understanding. Together, we had built a legacy that would endure for generations, a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. And with that, I knew we would continue to thrive, forever committed to the belief that together, we could face any challenge the universe threw our way.